Hello to everyone joining us today. Thank you for joining us at Lunchtime Marketing, and good afternoon and welcome. My name is Kevin and my wonderful co-host Bjorn Salsone. Hello Bjorn, how are you doing?
Hello! So excited to be here, even though for our guests it's in the middle of the night. I love that. Don't you just love guests like that, Kev? They're like the best. You like want to have them on the show every time because their commitment just shows up. Just so excited. Kev, who is our guest today?
Yeah, speaking about our guest, so just to preface this wonderful young lady, she's been part of Kevin's world for some time now, and I met this wonderful businesswoman and coach probably about 10 years ago, somewhere there, and so she's been privy to the becoming of Kevin in a big way, and she's eventually was part of a beautiful company in South Africa, and lived in South Africa, and eventually found some new roots in the US, and has subsequently moved over to the US, and now she lives in Belmont, Massachusetts. So welcome
Massachusetts, y'all from Massachusetts.
Andrea Magni. Hello, Andrea.
Good morning, Kevin. Hi, Bjorn.
Hello.
Hello. So that's the wrong accent for Massachusetts. They say pack over here. They don't have the southern drawl.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. Noted.
And
sorry, I grew up with like Southern Baptists, so I learned the American accent, not the Californian New York TV star. I learned the South. That's how I always say I get along with people of the South from all over, South Africa, south of Joburg, south of Cape Town. It's great, the South people.
So every now and then someone can't place my accent, and they'll say, where are you from? And I say, I'm from the South. They go, that's a bit of a strange accent. I go, no, the deep South.
I love that.
Yeah.
South Africans go, oh, you're from the Vaal. No, not quite.
So Andrea, just to kick off and tell everybody who you are, so just to preface, you lived in South Africa, you were Chief Operating Officer for the company here that you guys, and tell us more about what you guys did, and you kind of moved over to the US, and today you're an executive coach. So just give us a bit of background insight on you.
Okay. My career started in New York City, actually, in 1989, 1990, with working for American Express Bank doing quality control, which back then, quality control processes was really customer service and how you monitor customer service and customer experience that people were having. But of course, that's evolved over time, and it's very different today. But my sort of understanding and learning of that went into the business that we had, and we used to operate out of Midrand in Johannesburg, a full call center and back office support for a company that worked in the UK, South Africa, Republic of Ireland, some US business. And when just before I moved, about a year before I moved, we started up in the Czech Republic. We did an offsite in the Czech Republic. So my passion around that was always making sure people could do the job that they needed to do the best that they could. We used to do performance appraisals long before it became like a big deal, because I always wanted to make sure that we were getting the best out of the person, they were getting the best from us, as long as our values and needs met. And I would manage their careers until that point when that didn't happen. And then they would move on, or there would be some change where we'd need to change what they did so that they were still motivated. And so I've always loved being responsible for how somebody sees the next space that they move into. And so in 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. 4 months after my mother had died from it. Not from it, she had it. She died from a heart attack. And I went through treatment and went back to work and worked for another 6 or 7 months. We'd already started the process of moving here. And when I moved here, the last thing I wanted to do was go straight back into a corporate role. I don't know if any of you understand, but when you have like a life pivoting moment, you don't necessarily want to go back and do what you were always doing. You know, you loved some of it and you loved the people and you loved what you did, but there were elements of it I didn't want to keep. And so I took some time to get the family settled and to understand where we were and how things worked, and then retrained as a coach. And I've loved doing it. I've been, I think I was born to do it.
Cool. Andrea, I have a question from what you've just shared, because I often, you know, we do this weekly, and I'm often amazed as Kev and I often we chat offline. You know, you talk just kind of like, oh, you know, I did this and I did this. And I think often people don't realize between here and getting here, what this entails. The endless nights, the confusion, the wondering, the doubt, the hard work, the reinventing, the courses, the studying, meditation, the yoga, the praying, maybe lots of gin, all relative.
And you know, and at 50, it is much harder to have the confidence that you would probably have at, say, 32, where something changed and you go, you know what, I'll just do this for a while, or I'll go there, or you know, at 50, your thought process
Andrea,
is really around.
Who's 50? Who are we talking about?
I know, right?
I'm confused. Whatever routine you are using, can you please WhatsApp me offline? Just like Bjorn.
I can't help you
I'll
because
just follow it.
Generations of beautiful women who have looked after their skin. I can't help you. That's really all it is. My mother taught me from little to wash my face, and that's, and stay out of the sun.
Stunning. Sorry, I totally got derailed. I hit 50 and I got stuck.
It's okay. But so at 50, you have a different experience of how the world is supposed to be. You're a lot less secure. I mean, one of the first things I had to do here was my driver's license.
Wow.
And the driver's license test, I kid you not, when you print out the manual, it's like this thick.
Oh, wow.
And you have to learn it because they allow 16-year-olds to drive here. So at 16, you have to know every single rule of the road as it's supposed to be done. And they do it at school for several months, and then they do a test and so on. They must have 600 hours of driving or something before they can do the thing. So I think I'm exaggerating. It's probably about 300, but they've got to do it, and they log it. They log how many hours they've done, and then they do this test. And I'm reading this thing, and I'm going, I don't know how to remember that information, because it's things like if you're under 21 and you're caught with an open bottle of alcohol in your car, what happens to you? You lose your license. Do you lose your license for a period of time? Do you lose your license and get a fine? Are you ever allowed to drive again? Are you locked up? Things like that.
Wow.
You can't get it wrong. So obviously you stress a little. And so I'm reading this thing and I'm trying to do it. And it took me 4 minutes to do my learner's test. And I passed full colors. And I'm thinking all that anxiety beforehand was because you are in this moment where you go, how am I supposed to know all this stuff? How am I going to remember everything? You know, so it's fascinating. Yeah.
I'm just,
middle life stuff is a big thing here, because obviously there are a lot of us Generation Xers who are coming to a midpoint in their lives. COVID's happening. Some of us are having to be a little bit more entrepreneurial about what we do, and everybody looks at your CV and says, you're 50. That's kind of like, you know, to the millennial who's trying to hire you, 50 seems like, you're a boomer.
But I just want to, because that's sort of what I'm also picking up. When Andrea was one of the first people who said yes to chatting to me online. So thankful for that. And we, even in that conversation when we did our first chat, such insight that you shared. But Andrea, do you think it is a thing that you get to? I know people go, well, it's like a lot of people coin it your midlife crisis, but I do find now that I'm 41 years old and I'm kind of going, I really, really, really want to live it to the fullest, and I want to fail fast and I want to fail quickly and get up and do it again. Do you think that's something you've experienced in even moving to another country, that you're kind of going, no, actually I want to grip hold of whatever comes my way and really sink my teeth into it?
I think you're appropriately experiencing that where you are, because that's what I did, which was quite nice, because then by the time breast cancer found me and a whole bunch of other stuff, I could say, hey, I wasn't sitting back not living.
Yeah.
So my encouragement to anybody in the world is, there's a wonderful expression, everybody has two lives, the second starts the moment you only have the one.
Wow.
You only have one life, get out there and make it fun. Make it enjoyable, make it fun, make it worth living. Don't wait to die, make it worth living. So that would be my advice. So 41, 42, around there, that's a pretty average, you know, anywhere from 35 to 45 is midlife crisis. Because remember, you know, hundreds of years ago, you were almost at the end of your life.
Yes, strangely enough.
I was laughing. Bjorn mentioned his age earlier, and I said, you know, you're such a baby, and you really only have just started. The reality is, we've got all these medications, we've got all these things. We don't die young anymore. We can live, not forever, but because I don't think you want to. I think COVID is exceptional too, because I think people have been withheld from what they're used to experiencing. So people are chomping at the bit to be able to live again and to do the things that they used to do, but with an appreciation that's different now. I mean, look at that lovely octopus teacher documentary that's been out. What a beautiful thing to watch, right? What an absolutely beautiful thing to sit and be immersed in this man's experience with this octopus. I don't think it was a love story, because that's weird. I think it was really just an appreciation of, this is the world that I'm in, and this beautiful creature is doing its thing, but allowing me to be in its space. And I love that, because if we didn't have COVID, how many people would have watched that?
Yeah.
How many people would have spent the time to go? How many people would have spent the time to go, oh, you know what, that's actually really interesting? Or they would have gone, you know what, another documentary about some wildlife, you know? And so now we're much more appreciative of the things that we used to take for granted. Freedoms, jobs, things that we took for granted, a hell of a lot for granted before.
Going to a restaurant.
That
has changed my life.
Yeah, having that moment where you go, you know what, I don't feel like cooking tonight, I'd like to go out.
Yeah.
Or telling friends, hey, you know, let's all go meet somewhere. Meeting up with more than one friend.
Yeah.
And
the exchange rate of a smile, right? Because now I don't just see random smiles anymore, because everybody's wearing a mask. And so I smile at people all the time in the traffic.
I love it.
Now I can. Yeah.
So I want to just touch on one of the, speaking about in terms of friends, you know, Andrea is the type of person who called me out on on my branding the other day, and I'm so appreciative of it. And she politely said to me, "Can I give you a call quickly?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And she said, "I'd like to make a suggestion." And what I did was I posted something at the moment, I thought it was really funny. And she kind of said, maybe you shouldn't, because I pay attention to what you post and it's not really speaking to your brand. And with that, so I appreciate the fact that she's done that, because, you know, it's such good constructive feedback, you know, and kind of going, is what you're doing, what you're putting out in the world. And you know, Bjorn and I, like when we started this conversation, it's about really building that credibility and really putting yourself out there. The question that I sort of want to attach to what I'm sharing is, Andrea, how do you, because I know you're very specific on what it is you share on social media, but in terms of going from one country to another, how in your opinion do we do that effectively? How do we still have that one-on-one feeling connected to people, but also make sure that I'm just a normal human that's kind of got, you know, social media going, and sort of make sure people still feel connected to me in a degree? I mean, in terms of going from South Africa to the US, I'm sure even the conversations change, and also what it is you put out there and how you package that. You know, there probably goes a lot of thinking into that.
I don't overthink my social media at all, but what I'm very clear on is what my values are. And I apply the dipstick test to just about every element of my life. So you should be able to put a dipstick into my social media. You should be able to have a conversation with me in the gym, and you should be able to have a dinner party and a conversation with me in that environment. And you should pretty much have a similar approach to what it is that I would be commenting on. Yeah. So I don't comment on things that I have very little experience of. I will share things that I am passionate about, and I'm very clear about those. I don't take on stuff that I'm not. So just as an example, recently I shared something about a gender reveal party that somebody did that may have triggered or did trigger part of the Californian fire. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a pretty awful legacy for your beautiful little unborn poppet to have set fire to part of California before they were even born.
Yeah.
Now, I then got sort of a friend of mine said, "Are you conflating sex, gender with sexual identity?" And then you trigger me, because I am very clear on what somebody's sex is, what somebody's gender identity is, and what their sexual identity is. I'm very clear on the three different elements of somebody's life.
Right.
I go to Pride and I hand out mommy hugs because that's important for me. It's important for my children and their friends parents to see me actively, proactively, and overtly supporting the LGBT community. Not for any other reason than I really
I feel like we should be going to the YMCA right
now. We need people like Andrea.
You do. You need cisgender people to sit around and say, you know what? I don't care who's around me. I want smart people. I want fun people. I want people who are interesting to me. And it doesn't matter where they come from. And I need my children to know that I don't care what people my children date. They're going to be interesting to my children. My children have to find them interesting. And the third element is they have to have a sense of humor, or none of us are going to get on. That's all I care about.
Right.
Other than that, pick them yourself, because I don't have to lick them. You do.
Oh,
I know. And every time I say the word lick, 7 Bostonians die. Very conservative here. So to your point, Kevin. So
goodness.
Some of the advice
like
I would
it's got warming online all of a sudden.
That's funny.
You turn that light off. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is to not be political.
Yeah. Online or
online and social media, and also to a degree, depending on who you're with.
Except if you're a politician, obviously.
This is, but if you're moving to America, I would be very careful about what I post on social media. When you apply for your visa and you apply for your green card, you give all your social media handles. And when I say all, I mean even the ones your spouse doesn't know about. You have to declare on the form. Yeah, look, he's nervous now. So everything.
No, luckily, Eugene, we share those social media handles, so I'm good.
It's a separate conversation altogether.
Yep.
And that's fine. But all of those things, you share all of that stuff, and then they can go in and see what are you saying.
Wow.
And this came in last year. Was it last year or the year before? Under the current administration. Now, we know the current administration of America is very anti-immigration, and it's not just Mexicans climbing over the wall with avocados in their backpack. It is anti-immigration in total. Right?
Yes. So
you don't want to have something that's on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere that says, this human being is that, or because you never know who's processing your visa. Yeah. And that person might look at it and go, wow, why would this person want to come and live here? Or stuff. Yeah. And I'm not saying you can't hold an opinion and you can't just be very careful about how you curate your social media page. It's lots of fun to poke fun at certain people or to denigrate something, but remember, you're not a citizen of that country yet. So even now, today, I don't show up at the Black Lives Matter protest because if I get arrested doing that, then I don't have the same protection as a citizen would.
Wow. Okay. Andrea, can I ask something just out of interest? You know, in terms of you transitioning, you know, you spoke so bravely about your cancer journey, and thank you for that. You know, when you transitioned into coaching, am I correct to say you transitioned while you were in the US, or had you moved into coaching and then moved to the US?
I've always coached as part of my business.
Oh, right. Got it.
So, so I've always coached as part of my business, and I enjoyed that element of it. So when I came here, I then signed up with a local course, and I attended the course and then did the certification, etc. So that's the only process that I needed. That was the completion of it.
You asked me a question, Bjorn, about, and then we got cut.
Cool. So what I was, I mean, I asked you about the coaching question and in terms of you doing that. Maybe what we could just go into, Andrea, if someone was wanting to move to the US, what would the thing, because, you know, we last spoke about the social media aspect and we spoke about what you put out there, and you gave some really valuable tips about sharing on the social media. But if someone was going to practically move to the US and just as a disclaimer, you know, as we're doing the show, what we're celebrating are South Africans, because it's Heritage Month, who have moved overseas and reinvented themselves. And the important part about reinventing yourself is for people to understand that you are reinventing yourself not only as a South African, whether you're in the States, in America, in the States, or within Ireland or the Holland, or as we've had on the show, but reinventing yourselves, period, because of COVID-19. You really don't have a choice but to reinvent yourself. So just a bit of a disclaimer in case you get any backlog or backlash. We're not forcing people to immigrate. We're just sharing how to reinvent yourself. And it's awesome to celebrate South Africans who are reinventing yourself. So do you have any tips if people are looking to immigrate to the US and thinking, you know what, it's been a long enough journey, always wanted to, now it might be the best time? What did you kind of say, a few tips that you go, these are real things that you should consider?
One of the things that I had made a note of was say yes to all kinds of things. And obviously, if you're still on that side and you're still thinking of immigrating, try and find the part of America. Well, obviously, first of all, you've got to find a job. I mean, most people would move if they get a job. So find where that is and do some research, but don't do research on CNN. Find the local newspapers and do a little bit of research with that. There are very good sites here that tell you the zones for schools. So if you've got kids, you know, it's not like in South Africa, kids can go to the government school here. In the neighborhood that you're in, because they're zoned so that you can walk to and from school. It's really wonderful. And find the ones that are rated for what you need, you know, because people have different needs for their kids. So that's stuff that you can do from that side. You can look at where to live and that sort of stuff. As far as moving here, some people find comfort in finding other South Africans. For myself, I would have found that heavily restrictive and kind of just moving with the same people and you don't integrate as fast. So I made a point of rebuilding my tribe. Your tribe are the people that you can rely on for all kinds of things. These are people you can phone in the middle of the night and say, oh my God, I need your help. Will you do something? And it takes time to build a tribe. So that's been my sort of clear intention since I landed, was to make sure that I had valuable people that I could put in as my tribe members.
Amazing.
Other than that, gosh, you know, it's such a different world. Wherever you move, it's going to be so different. And what you think is America because you've watched every single television program they've ever done, that's not America. It's not, you know, they are quite conservative. Like I live in Boston. Boston's very conservative. You wouldn't think so. They have a Republican governor, but he's pretty cool because he won't vote for the current Republican leader because he doesn't like him. and he vocally says so.
Wow.
But then the entire administration or the people that run Boston and Massachusetts are Democrats. They always win. So, but the governor is
Okay.
the governor is a Republican. So, but it's a very conservative town. People dress a certain way. So 90% of the clothes that you would be wearing where you are would change. You would start to adapt to what people wear locally. Nothing you have for winter will get you past the second week of November here.
Oh, wow.
Why?
Because then it gets super cold.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, like the jacket you wear or the coat you wear when you go out on a Friday night in the middle of winter and you're out a bit late?
Yes.
That's pretty much what you'll wear second week of November. From about the third week of November onwards, you need special shoes, you need fleece-lined boots, you need waterproof, wind-breaking, padded, insulated.
Okay.
It was like minus 20 degrees one Christmas.
Okay, Kevin, I'm not moving to Boston. You can be rest assured.
Well, there are other parts of America that don't experience this. California is like living in summer all year round.
Kevin, I'll be moving to California if I ever
and they have all the wine farms. It's like living in the Cape.
But it's true. I've heard that so many people say that. So many people experience that. The one thing that you don't anticipate is moving from South African weather to that kind of weather, because the weather is different. It's not just cold; it is severely differently cold. But Andrea, in terms of
someone explained it. They said Johannesburg has a climate, and America has weather. Like here we have tornadoes, and here we have hurricanes, and here we have polar vortices, I guess. And,
Sure. But in terms of going through this process, being a cancer survivor, reinventing yourself in a whole new world, finding a tribe, what are the tips you could leave people with? Because I know that it has to become something that you get up and go every day. It has to be an internal voice. It has to be that inspiration that sort of you tap into. What is that for you?
My mantra, it's interesting because I've always had a mantra that says I will not die with my potential intact. I'm not really sure. I read it somewhere and it kind of stuck on my wall forever. There's always hope. There's always something that you can do that's something different or more exciting, or I'm curious about the world. I think curiosity would be the thing that drives me. Why do I get up every day? Because I'm curious to see what the day will have, what to unfold, who am I going to speak to. I would say, especially if you're in an entrepreneurial type of business, is speak to everybody at every opportunity about what it is that you do. Right. I was at a Sting and Shaggy concert back when we used to have concerts. That's the other nice thing about living here, is you get to see fun stuff. Anyway, so I was at Sting and Shaggy, and there was a woman who was standing next to me. We ended up having a conversation. She'd taken off several months to look after her parents, but her parents were quite ill, and she moved them into a care facility. And now she was looking to go back to work, and her friend said, oh, she's a financial controller. And I said, oh, okay, do you enjoy that? She said, well, actually, no, I'm thinking of doing something different. And I said, well, I'm a life coach and an executive coach, and I know that you know what you want to do, and I can help you figure that out. And so I got to work with someone. Speak to everybody at all times about what it is that you do. Otherwise, how's somebody going to know? I know you asked one of the questions, how do you market yourself? It's pure networking. But not networking as I went to an event and I handed out 400 business cards. If you go to an event and you authentically connect to 10 people, and even that's a lot. Yeah. If you connect authentically to 10 people, they will remember you, and 100%. They will remember what you do. And then you can go back to that network and you can say, hey, remember we met at that thing? Would you mind if I come and see you for 2 minutes and talk?
Sorry. And the one thing that I take away from what you've said earlier is say yes, right? Say yes to things.
Oh, for sure.
Because like today,
anytime you're invited to something, just go. What do you got to lose? You can always leave early. You can always call Uber. You can get out of there. You don't have to stay forever, but just say yes. Go to things. Go and see stuff.
And
meet people.
Andrea, I have a question that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be thinking while they listen to this interview is, how did you not lose your accent in light of your comment? And you said this, that you realized in Boston it's a little bit more conservative, so you'll find that you start dressing the same in terms of not basically what you want to fit in, but I suppose it's an element of acceptance. Did you intentionally not lose your accent so that you are the person who stands out and therefore it's like, who are you? Or is it just because you are so grounded in your South African roots and not like me, when I go overseas, I pick up an accent in like 5 seconds and people are like, are you local? I'm like, no, not really. So that's what I just thought I'd ask as a question.
So that's an interesting question, because there are 4 of us in the family, and I'll explain the history. And I don't dress the same as Bostonians. I showed up at a women's conference in a flaming red suit. I don't dress the same. Some people might. I should have put that in there. Some people might.
Right,
you might find yourself wanting to dress. Also, you can't really buy the clothes unless you go to different places, which is
fair enough.
What I do. So the first thing is, yes, I'm so grounded in myself. Julio is in business and he's speaking to American business people all the time. And from time to time, I find his inflection changing. And Americans in business use a lot of sports metaphors. They use a lot of acronyms. So sometimes when I hear him speaking in a Zoom call, I get a sense of someone who has lost a little edge of his accent because he's flowing with the conversation with a whole group of Americans.
Right, guys.
And sometimes they don't understand you if you speak clearly. Like if you walk into a restaurant in New York City and you ask for a glass of water, someone's going to go, what? And if you ask for a glass of water, then they go, oh, why didn't you ask for that? And then there's also, getting in the taxi and asking them to go somewhere. You want to slip into an American accent. You don't want them to know you're foreign, so that they start ripping you off and things like that. But so I haven't lost my accent. However, my children were 11 and 10 when we moved, and 11 and 12, and they are fluent American, but they don't speak with a Boston accent. They speak with a sort of a general American accent.
Oh, that's interesting. Great.
Well, remember that this is like if you're 10 when you move, and it's like 3 years later, that's a third of your life, just about. It's different from me. I mean, I have to be here for a long time if it's going to be a third of my life. So they adapt quite quickly, and also remember it's much harder if you're at school and you're with peers and things. You want to fit in a little bit.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
So in wrapping up today, because we between Bjorn and I, we could go on forever. But in wrapping up today, what are the, like, if you could give us like 3 key tips of I know that you said, be careful on what you put out there and your social media, and obviously have a job and do your homework. But if you could leave someone with some wisdom today, because a lot of the time people tune in to just hear some really good takeaway from people who have done this and have done it successfully, what would that be? What tips could you just advise people on if you're going to do this? Take note.
Approach with humility. Don't approach with arrogance. There's a sense that sometimes there's a perception that Americans are not as bright, and that's unfair, and it's not true. And South Africans, because of all the stuff we've been through, we've had to prove a lot to ourselves. So we can come across as brash and arrogant and a little not confident, but cocky. You know what I mean? I think approaching things with humility is a good idea.
I like that.
Don't rush. You'll learn the sense of humor, or the things that they use a lot of cultural references that you're supposed to have known since you were little growing up. And that's, I think, been harder for my children than for me, for example, because I can say what I mean. Whereas as kids, they're like, oh, I'm supposed to know that, Right. So don't be too hard on yourself if you're not catching up with all that stuff, but you will eventually. What were the other things? If you're moving business-wise, spend some time having business meetings with people, if you can, in the organization, because they work very differently. They work very, very differently. There's a different pace. There's a different structure. Everyone here is either a VP or a director. They all want a title. So you don't know, the hierarchy doesn't mean the same to you as it does to them, right? They want to see themselves as a sort of a flat line, whereas you want to have an understanding, oh, someone's VP of something, so that I report to them, or I'm a director, do they report to me, etc. So that's also understand the terminology before you get there, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of.
I wish we had more time.
In countries, you won't know till you get there how hard it's going to be, you know. But
fair enough.
My biggest one is find a tribe. Find a tribe of really strong, meaningful people.
Cool.
You know, that's important. I think that's why South Africans stick with South Africans, because you know, at least you've got that commonality. You've got a whole lot of stuff in common.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. You know, I wish, like you say, Bjorn, I wish we had more time, because I find it so fascinating, because you're going to go, well, you know, like someone who's been here for so long, and then they go, no, actually, even the way we work, even the way we do day to day is very, very different, especially when you arrive there. I'm like, that's not something you generally anticipate, you know, from arriving in a new country. You don't kind of think, oh, right. But Bjorn, tell us quickly before we close off today, what's happening new in your world?
I have a double-edged sword to approach this question. The first element I want to say to you is there's so much happening that I'm not sleeping, or not literally. And the other point I feel like I'm going, I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose all that's happening just yet. So I'm going to say this: watch this space. That is
well, there we go.
That is the safest comment to make. Other than the fact that I really wanted to go do the Jerusalem now, because I keep thinking about your 2 weekends ago in Cape Town, and the FOMO is kicking in of going back home and just check it out and missing friends, and I'm like, should we do the Jerusalem? So let me end and say there's a lot going on. Watch the space. Kev, what's happening in your world?
My world, I'm so blessed and fortunate to be busy at the moment. I'm doing a lot of training, working with Regenesis Business School. They're really enjoying those processes. One of the things Andrea mentions in our previous interview is resilience, and that's something that we touch on in the training. But also, you know, the Cape Town training is happening. And yeah, I'm at this point where I'm scheduling time to rest, which is a bit weird. I was like, okay, just rest.
Yeah.
Just take an hour and just calm down, because I'm so blessed. I'm literally counting them as it happens every day. But so in the next week, who do we get to chat to?
So Kevin, that's one of those where I say to you, to TBC, not to be confirmed, okay, but more to be revealed.
Announced. Revealed.
To be revealed. So watch the space. Hence I said earlier, lots going on, watch the space. That is a safe space in terms of commenting.
Andrea, so where we're going to leave off today is thank you for joining us. You know, it's so wonderful to have insights. Thank you for making the time. You yourself being an executive life coach, and I know that you also you work all over the world, and you have international clientele. But if people want to get hold of you, what is going to be the best for us to do? Where do we go for that?
So I have, which is pretty much my style. There's no point in messing about. Dive right into whatever you want to do. You'll learn along the way. Resilience is only taught by making mistakes and learning how to stand up, and you know, you don't get resilience as gift on your 21st. So my website, Dive Right In Coach, or I can give my email address, acjmagni@gmail.com. And yeah, I coach all over the world, so I enjoy the dimensions that gives my life.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, guys, all this information that Andrea is sharing, it will be in the description box below. And today's interview was just so crazy with all these like the signal. And
if only people knew. But we made it happen, right? So
on the bright side, look, the sun came up.
fantastic.
Eventually,
Yeah.
wow. And thank you for making the time, because I know, I mean, it's early in the morning, but we're so grateful that you could share some time with us, some insights, and some fun with us. So Andrea, thank you so much. Bjorn, thank you so much. And guys, thanks for joining today, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Chat later. Bye.